morning, Ibadan. Welcome to Daybreak Live on this bright and hopeful Tuesday, the 8th of July 2025, coming to you live on Dominion Television. I am Samson Balogun.
Good morning to you, and I'm Oluwayemi Adelako. It's a brand new day, and we're glad to have you with us. Whether you're just getting out of bed or already on your way out, we've got your morning covered.
All right, let's kick things off with a quick look at the weather for Tuesday. If you are in Lagos or the southwest, expect partly cloudy skies with some intervals of sunshine and light showers in the afternoon. Highs around 31 degrees Celsius. Abuja will see a mostly sunny morning, turning cloudy later with chances of thunderstorms. Temperatures peaking at 30 degrees Celsius. Over in the east, Enugu and Owerri will be humid, scattered rain expected. So, folks, keep your umbrellas close just in case it rains.
Sounds like classic July weather in Nigeria, unpredictable yet somehow expected. Now, moving on to the show, we've got a lot lined up for you. We'll start with the break news, bringing you the latest update making headlines across the country and beyond. From politics to policy, the economy to energy, no story too small.
All right, from there, we go straight into newspaper headline and analysis. We'll be diving into what the dailies are saying this morning, helping you make sense of the spin, the facts, and what it means for all of you.
Yes, but the highlight of our show today is a big story. Court versus Chamber. Wow. Really? Where Senator Natasha put to be allowed back. A major legal and political twist is unfolding, and we'll be exploring every angle. But the court rule in our favor. What are the implications for legislative independence and democratic process?
Joining us for this conversation is Dr. Kunle Okola, a respected public affairs analyst, who will help us break it down and what's at stake, who's pulling the strings, and what it means for representation and the rule of law in Nigeria.
Exactly. It's one of those stories that could shape the political tone in the coming months, especially as 2027 edges closer. So don't miss that segment.
Right, and just when you think we are done, Trend Watch takes over, giving you a pulse check on what's hot and trending across Nigeria and the globe. From tech to entertainment to society and viral moments, we have got this morning, covered for you.
Exactly. So grab your tea, coffee, or water bottle, settle in, and let's dive into another energetic and insightful edition of Daybreak Live.
Once again, welcome to Daybreak Live. You can join the conversation by linking up with us on all socials, and on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, it is at Dominion Broadcast. On X, formerly Twitter, it is at Dominion Cast. You can do well to link up with us on LinkedIn too. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch us live. Drop your comments, and after that, you can also watch this show, as we have a lot to unpack for you on this show this morning. The show just got started, but we woke up to news that we'll say was rather saddening yesterday. The Imperial Majesty, the Oba Olabiola Kuleyi, the Olubadan of Ibadan land, joined his ancestors yesterday. I mean, it was the Ibadan, in some quarters, they call Ibadan the Agbotikuyos. So in some quarters, it was morning, in some quarters, drummers were out there, doing their thing, because I think I have a huge respect for the Obaship arrangements in Ibadan. You know who's next, who's next after who's next. So there's no controversy.
It's so obvious.
It's so obvious. So while they were mourning at the house of the late king, at the other end, where the Olubadan designates, his own house and his family house, there were drummers already saying, "Oh, it's our turn."
Yes, just like you said, the drummers moved to his house yesterday. And then one thing I found out about this late Oba Olubadan is that he was born in July, and then he died in July. And he was also crowned in July, same July. We have a few days to his anniversary. And of course, I think while he was on the throne, he consolidated on his power the 33rd Olubadan. But let's look at that, the trajectory. I think in the last few years now, we've had about 3 Olubadan, crowned. And I think we had a wave of that even sometimes around 1930 to 1953, about 7 Olubadan in the space of about 10 or 15 years. So I mean, it's just like you said, we appreciate the fact that these things are not so
there's no controversy.
Exactly, so obvious to the public that we know the next person in line. A lot of persons are already congratulating him, even on WhatsApp statuses yesterday, because however, we come straight with the family of the late Olubadan.
A few days ago, he had his 90th birthday.
Exactly.
In fact, his representatives actually visited, some hospitals, motherless babies homes, and the likes, just to show love. And there was meant to be a press conference yesterday, and the news just broke
yesterday.
So it's just like that. Sometimes you have plans, and then some other things change. Some things are just inevitable, and joining his ancestors is something that no one could actually control. But then, as we have always known, the tagline is still there. The Abotipuyos. It's celebration on one hand, and some people are mourning. But all in all, I think he left behind a good legacy.
Yeah.
There was a time there were rumors of land grabbers in some quarters. He had to put his house in order, and I think some bailies and mortgages were questioned for some action. So it tells you how grounded he was as a king. He stood his ground and made sure that some things that really should not be happening, is put to check. And talking about the Olubadan designate, he's the former governor of Oyo State. He was governor of Oyo State and former senator too, and now he's the Olubadan designate. So
exactly, just like you said, I think he rolled out quite a number of policies, that helped make this place a better place. Just like the open defecation, I think we talked about it here.
Yeah,
he brought about the policy that we need to stop that. I think that is one of it. So he was able to consolidate on his power, because in the space of 1 year, people could feel like this man did something before he actually passed.
And to also say that I was the 43rd Olubadan, and he was one of the monarchs you actually call a monarch, because he was always there giving out instructions on things to do and not to do. I mean, his voice was everywhere in Ibadan. So may he so rest in peace, and of course we commiserate with the families. That takes away from this segment of the show this morning. We say very big thank you to everyone that has joined us so far. Now we step aside, head straight to our news desk, as we have a lot of updates for you on this desk this morning. We'll be back after this time out.
Good morning. This is the break news on Dominion Television. My name is Oluwayemi Adelakun. The Federal Ministry of Education has announced the commencement of the 2025-26 Technical Teachers Training Program, TTTP, a tuition-free one-year postgraduate diploma in education, PGDE, aimed at upgrading the skills of secondary school teachers handling technical and vocational subjects across Nigeria. The initiative unveiled through the Ministry's Department of Technology and Science Education in Abuja is part of the government's renewed commitment to strengthening technical and vocational education and training, TVET, in the country. According to the ministry, the program seeks to re-energize TVET by equipping teachers with modern pedagogical skills and aligning their knowledge with contemporary industry standards. The federal government has revoked all prior approvals granted for development within national corridors and ecological zone setbacks as it begins strict enforcement of development control regulations along federal highways, coastal roads, shorelines and the Lagos Lagoon corridor. According to the Surveyor General of the Federation, Adeyemi Adebumei, this followed the directive issued by President Bola Tinubu mandating the immediate halt of unauthorized development in these areas. He also said the enforcement applies to all affected zones and nullifies all previously granted planning approvals. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has approved the appointment of Honorable Adeyinka Kasim Adeniyi Bibiri as his new Deputy Chief of Staff, DCOS. This follows the resignation of Honorable Fola Oyekule, who recently emerged as the People's Democratic Party's candidate for the Ibadan North Federal Constituency by election slated for August 16, 2025. According to a letter signed by the Chief of Staff to the Governor, Otumba Segun Ogowe, Makinde also approved the dissolution of the board of the Shooting Stars Sports Club 3SC and the appointment of Honorable Taiwo Lekon Salami as the new chairman. In the same vein, Governor Makinde approved the appointment of Honorable Kabiru Salami, a retired police officer, as executive assistant to the governor, security coordination, and Honorable Waid Adeniyi as the new chairman of Oyo State Waste Management Authority. The governor, while congratulating the new appointees, counseled them to see their appointment as a call to service, also noting that the appointment are with immediate effect. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has disclosed that late Olubado of Ibadan land, Oba Olabi Olakule Ige I, will be given a befitting burial. Governor Makinde made this known while receiving a delegation from the family of the late king and members of the Central Council of Ibadan Indigenes who informed him on the demise of late Oba Olabi Olakule Ige I.
Reacting to the news of the monarch's demise, Governor Seyi Makinde said the state would stand by the family during this period and ensure the late Olubadan receives a befitting burial.
Fortunately for us, God has designed our body for a certain period of time. I will commiserate with the family.
At the Alalubosa residence of Oba Olakule, traditional drummers bade the late king farewell as the family described the passage of the royal father a celebration of life.
For us, it is a celebration of life. There is no mourning. He had his 90th birthday on Saturday, the 5th of July. He ascended to the throne of his father, becoming the Olubado of Ibadan after a 43-year journey. So either way you look at it, from family life to military career to business, Kabiyesi lived a successful life. And therefore, we cannot be querying God as he has gone to join his ancestors early this morning.
Some Ibadan indigenes have expressed their heartfelt condolences to people of Ibadan and the family of Olakule.
Forthrightness is very straightforward person. He doesn't miss word. I said, when I say Kabiyesi, don't call me Kabiyesi, call me brother, so that people you know that I'm your brother. May his soul rest in peace.
I happen to be a pillar in the house of God. He happened to be a pillar of support in the society. and the society, I mean, that is a democratic society, then at large is a general philanthropist.
He couldn't be in one side of religion. He just carry all the religion as the same. And then he have good mind about the people under him.
He was our royal father. And if you go and do your research, you will know how close I was to Kabiyesi Olakunleye. You will remember him as a good role model and mentor.
Real Kabiyesi is a Kabiyesi who have the interest of a citizen in mind. He loved Oyo State, and during his own tenure, Oyo State rise to the top.
Meanwhile, it was celebration galore at the Bodija residence of former governor of Oyo State and Olubadan designate, Oba Rashidi Ladoja.
The report was packaged by Grace Aino and read by Osarenoma Sabah. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, Nyesom Wike, has disclosed that 700 million naira was generated from the Bola Ahmed Tinubu International Conference Center within 3 weeks of operation. Wike disclosed this during the official Thanksgiving service at St. James Anglican Church in Asokoro, Abuja, to mark the successful completion of project commissioned by Tinubu. He lamented that the former operator of the facility was paying the federal government 50 million naira yearly. The federal government has incurred a total of 536 billion naira in electricity subsidy obligations in the first quarter of 2025 alone, amid its struggles to pay over 4 trillion naira debt owed to power generation companies. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, disclosed this in its latest report that the subsidy obligation of the government increased by 64 billion naira from 471 billion naira in the last quarter of 2024 to 536 billion naira in the fourth quarter of 2025. According to the Commission, the 536 billion naira was 59% of the total Genco invoice for the quarter. Next stated that in the absence of cost-effective tools, the government undertakes to cover the resultant gap between the cost-reflective and allowed tariffs in the form of tariff subsidies. In sport, Meyiwa Orisame has parted ways with Nigeria Premier Football League (NPFL) side Bendel Insurance. Orisame featured regularly for the Benin Arsenals last season. The defender's contract with Bendel Insurance has already expired. Orisame said it was time to take up a new challenge in his career. Orisame netted 8 goals in 49 NPFL appearances for Bendel Insurance. You can visit our website on www.dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Dominion Broadcast and X at Dominion Cast. That's the break news. I am Oluwayemi Adelakun. Say thank you for watching and good morning. Right, thank you for staying with us. Welcome you back to Studio Break Live on Dominion Television. And of course, in this segment, we'll talk about the major headlines across the dailies. Starting with leadership this morning, I have the headline that says, Kano Emirate Tosu, my palace gets breached by Bayero supporters. That's coming from Emir Sanusi. That headline asked this rider, innocent citizens injured, incident unfortunate. That's coming from the government. Please, Emir Bayero, keep mum. Actually, this is not quite palatable. A lot happened, and of course, we hope that this will be settled soon. I mean, the Tosu. Moving on to another headline, I have this one that says, Senator Natasha can't resume. That's coming from Senate lawyer. I watched a video where she spoke to the people and appreciated them, for supporting her, over time. And then she said that she is due to resume her senatorial duties today. However, the Senate and some other parties are saying, she might not resume yet. Recall that she was suspended, a few months back, and then the case is still in court, of course. But recently, Binta Ayako, that's the judge, actually, spoke about a suspension that it is excessive, unconstitutional, and of course a infringement on a constituent. Because I mean, if a senator is suspended, how is she supposed to cater for the needs of the people? How is she supposed to pass on these in the Senate? And she came out recently to say that she's going to be resuming today. Will that stand or not? I guess we're going to find out real soon before the day runs to an end. Moving on to another headline this morning, I have this one that says, Tinubu Sultan Emir of Ilori offers mourn as Olubado dies at 90. He died in the early hours of yesterday, and of course we commiserate with the family. I also have another headline on leadership that says, ADC members sue to void Mark Aregbesol's appointment. That headline asks this rider, party and letters APC sabotage plot. I think I read the story, late yesterday, and it talks about the fact that, about 3 men, aggrieved men of the ADC, took the matter to court and prayed the court to sack David Mark and Aregbesola because they came into the party through an unconstitutional manner and they deserve to be sacked. It's a lot to undo, going by the fact that this coalition is, trying to unseat the president come 2027, and they are still going through crises like this. Recall that I mentioned that, recently the former presidential candidate of ADC in 2023 said that these people came into the party through the back door, and of course they have to leave at some point. Is this connected to this, court issue, this court case that we have on the page of leadership this morning? We get to find out, before the day runs out. Looking at another headline on leadership, I have this one that says, rainstorm kills 4, destroys over 1,000 houses in Kano. I think we're still battling with this issue of flood and heavy rainstorm in the country. 35 abducted women, children rescued in Noida after 1 year. Enugu Air commences operation. And of course, the final one on leadership this morning, CBN demands action plans from banks to fix capital deficit. Moving on to the Guardian newspaper, I have this one that says fiscal inefficiencies erode Naira's prospects despite weakening dollar. I think this is a conversation that will not stop for a while, because talking about how weak the Nigerian dollar is, the Nigerian Naira is to a dollar, it's a lot to handle. Going back the fact that just a few years ago, dollar was still about 500, 5 plus, 6 plus, and then it moved from that to about 1,508. Is a lot to undo. Moving on to another headline, I have this one that says opposition unity at risk as ADC leadership faces legal order collapse and warning. I think I spoke about that just now, going by the fact that about 3 persons took the matter to court, members of the ADC, that these people have no right, to come and, take over leadership and say they want to unseat, the president come 2027. They came through the back door, and of course they must leave at some point. Another headline here says Tinubu insists fuel subsidy unsustainable, benefits only rich citizens. A lot of controversies, ever since the subsidy was removed. Some members members of the opposition parties have come out to say, you know what, even if we were elected, instead of the president, we were still going to remove the subsidy, but not the way the president removed it. And of course, questions are being asked. I mean, what will these people do differently if they were the ones that removed the subsidy when they did? And of course, presidency has come out to say that, you know what, we have gathered a lot of money, from this subsidy removal. It has benefited the state, increase in the revenue of, state governors. A lot of things has been put in place. However, the opposition parties will not have it. They feel the subsidy was removed, in a very, absurd manner. It should not have been done that way. Moving on to another paper this morning, I have with me the Blueprint. And of course, this headline saying no going back on nuclear test ban in Nigeria. That's coming from Shatima, the vice president of the country. Another headline is saying Mogadishu turned to Ladoja as Olubadan Olakuleyin dies at 90. Just yesterday, the drummers of the palace, moved to the residence of, Ladoja, who is next in line in terms of the throne. Another headline on the Blueprint says, please rescue 35 kidnapped victims in Niger. I think that's a good development. Of course, another headline here is saying, savings from fuel subsidy removal helping infrastructure funding. That's coming from the president, Tinubu himself. Recall that recently the president, had to, travel, to some places, even in Abuja, some roads, were installed, and then people celebrated. And a lot of persons are also asking the questions, is it just about, infrastructure, putting roads in places? Is it just about that, speaking about this whole subsidy removal? However, the government is saying, apart from that, we have also used this money to cater for other needs, across the country. Moving on to Nigerian Tribune this morning, I have this headline that says global trade tension over fresh U.S. 10% tariff hike on Nigeria, BRICS nation. That headline asks this writer as Trump decries anti-American policies of bloc. Let's talk about BRICS for a moment, because recently the 17th summit was had in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and then this BRICS consists of countries, like Brazil, like, Russia, like China, and recently, and even in 2011, I think, South Africa joined, and of course, apart from these countries, a lot of other countries have also joined, and Nigeria is even in the picture, and of course, the president talked about quite a number of things during the summit. He said that, when it comes to, climate, change, Africa contribute the least, but Africans are suffering the most. He also mentioned quite a number of things. And of course, concerning that, the president of the United States came out to say, you know what, these people, any country at all, that is supporting anti-American policies will be taxed, 10% tariff hike. And Nigerians came out to lament yesterday on social media that, this is too harsh, going by what, some of these countries are going through at the moment. Of course, I'll have my analysts talk about that, shortly. Before I leave Nigerian Tribune, I also have this headline that says, we didn't accuse NNPCL of stealing 210 trillion naira, but asked to account for it. That's coming from Senate committee. That headline asks this writer, stakeholders ask INEC to account for over 300 billion naira IREV allocation for 2023 elections. Seek constitution amendment for police to prosecute anyone indicted by NAS. It's something to look at, because looking at the amount that is being talked about in trillion, not even a billion, is something to talk about. Final headline on Nigerian Tribune this morning, not ganging up against Tinubu. That's coming from APC. National Secretary says we will not miss Aregbesola Amechi orders in 2027. Do not forget that recently the daughter of Baba Galadima, talked about the fact that, looking at how the North is now and some of the things that have happened over the weeks, President Bola Tinubu might not be able to gather up to 30% vote in the North. And a lot of persons are asking, is it because of the resignation of Ganduje or the opera in Gombe? Or, looking at the body language of some of the top political shots, in the Northeast and the Northwest as well, is it actually, something to worry about? Speaking about the APC or the election of 2027. And of course, the rider says we will not miss Aregbesola, Amechi, others in 2027. Is that possible? Will it really stand? Because if you recall, Aregbesola and the current president of this country were really close at some point, but then at some point they fell out, and then the party is coming out to say, you see, we will not miss these people, including, Rotimi Amechi, who left the party, just recently. And of course, the final paper for this morning's New Telegraph, I have this one that says Nigeria at risk over Trump's proposed extra 10% tariff against BRICS nation. That's a serious one. And that headline, as this writer says, Tinubu calls for revaluation of global governance, finance and others. China canvasses global governance reforms, South-South cooperation. Reports Nigeria becoming target of Russia's influence campaign in Africa. We are going to be looking at the stories one after the other, but then I need to introduce my analyst on the program this morning in person of analyst Toyin Ganiyo, who is a commentator on national issues and of course works in one of the oil wells across the country. Good morning, analyst Toyin. Welcome aboard. Good morning, Analyst Toyin. Can you hear me? Okay, so I think we still need to continue with some of the headlines that we have this morning. Of course, I'm seeing a particular headline on Nigerian Tribune talking about Tinubu Makinde Sultan Alaafin. Others pay tribute as Olubadan joins ancestors at 90. And the headline is saying we are celebrating, not mourning. That's coming from the Sun. I mean, looking at the age of the man and the fact that he was still able to reign for 1 year before his demise. Of course, he died at 90. And of course, a lot of persons. Oh, okay, I think I have my analyst on board now. Good morning, Analyst Toyin Ganiyo.
Good morning, Yemi. Good morning to our listeners and viewers all over the world.
Yeah, thank you for joining us this morning. Of course, let's start from...
to be here.
Yeah. So let's start from this headline on the leadership paper, and it says ADC members sue to void Mark Aragbesola's appointment. I read the story that members of the ADC have taken this matter to court, and they prayed the court to sack David Mark Aregbesola and of course some other appointment of that party, claiming that these people have no right to come and invade their party. What do you make of this? Because I recall that Ralph Nwosu, that's the former chairman of the party, stated that he spoke to some persons before actually bringing these people on board. I'm talking about the likes of Atiku, the likes of Amechi. So why are we experiencing this issue now? Why is this coming up? If he said that he spoke to some of these people before actually bringing them on board. Is it an issue of communication? What do you make of this matter?
So this is a very, very interesting situation. People have been in the party for long. They've sacrificed for the party for long. They've done all things to bring the party to the state that it is. And seeing all these big wigs who just came, and took over the structure of the party, they know that yes, attention will be given to the party now. They know that there will be all manners of media frenzy around the party now. So they also want to enjoy part of it. They are feeling that they will be sidelined, in the grand scheme of things, and they also want to be recognized. So I think over the coming weeks and coming months, they will come to an agreement on how to pacify them and how to also show that they will be carried along as the talks go by. They just want to feel relevant. That's just the apex of everything that's going on.
So we shouldn't really worry about all of this is going to be settled because I read a story that before now the party is actually going through some issues. I don't know, maybe it's related to funding. Are we not seeing this? Or let me say, these members that have taken the matter to court, is it that they are not seeing this as an opportunity to actually build the party the more and of course come up with good results in the next few years?
I think they just want to feel relevant. I think they just also want to be seen, that they are also involved in the scheme of things. Obviously, as we get closer to the 2027 elections, a lot of people are still going to come into the party, and those who don't have much electoral value, would, be shifted out. So the party members who took this matter to court don't want to be among those shifted out because they know that the big wigs now are going to start installing their people and their structures all around. So they also want to feel relevant and be carried along. I'm sure there's going to be a political solution to all this in the coming months. So I don't think it will be a major thing, you know, in the grand scheme of things. They will find a common ground and a political solution to it. They just want to feel relevant in the scheme of things.
All right, so we are hopeful on that. Let's talk about this. You are a professional in this sector. I have this headline on Nigerian Tribune that says, we didn't accuse the NNPCL of stealing 210 trillion naira, but asked to account for it. That's coming from the Senate committee, and it has some riders saying stakeholders ask INEC to account for over 300 billion naira IREV allocation for 2023 elections, seek constitution amendment for police to prosecute anyone indicted by NAS. Let's start from the issue of NNPCL. What's going on about this whole stealing of money, about, oh, you need to come and account for this, and they coming out to say, okay, we are just asked to come and account, we then steal the money. What do you make of all of this? Can you help us understand, you know, the issues surrounding this matter?
So unfortunately, this is the challenge that we have in Nigeria. We have a challenge of accountability. I watched the hearing, the Senate hearing, you know, and the chairman then was very, very clear that certain monies were not accounted for. And he wanted NNPC management, you know, to come and, you know, unravel why it was not accounted for. He was very clear with his committee members that certain amounts of money were missing. So I'm surprised now that, you know, he's now coming out to say they were not accused of diverting money. We all know how it plays out. Obviously, after the hearing, certain big wigs, certain influential people were not comfortable with the Senate meeting, and, you know, the findings. I probably would have gone, you know, to meet influential people in government to see how they will water, you know, the proceedings and all. And that's why now we're now hearing that now to come and account, we are not accusing anybody of such and every other thing. It's a pity that we don't take accounting very serious in the public sector in Nigeria. And it's really a shame, because this will have allowed us to be able to understand even some of the corruption tendencies that we've always been hearing in government agencies like this. But unfortunately, it seems that this might not be the case. It seems now that probably now there will be a political solution to all this, and we might not get to hear the true state of the affairs at the end of the day. It's really a pity. It really is a pity.
It's a sad one. Okay, away from that, let's also talk about this headline that I have, and it says global trade tension over fresh U.S. 10% tariff hike on Nigeria and the BRICS nations, you know, as Trump decries anti-American policies of bloc. Recently, I think I watched a video where the president, you know, was talking about certain things during the 17th summit, and then, you know, the United States president came out to say that, you know what, 10%, you know, tariff hike, you know, on some of these nations, you know, that support anti-American policies. What do you make of this? Because Nigeria is even still new in this association, and all of this is already happening. Nigerians are even afraid because, I mean, 10%, you know, hike is a lot on Nigerians, looking at what, you know, the economy is saying at this moment. What do you think?
So the United States of America is seen as a world power, and it does not want to relinquish that role to anybody. China is also coming up, you know, to gradually take that position from the USA, and the United States don't want anything of such. China is part of the BRICS movement, and as a result, the United States sees it as a threat to it. So that's why the United States is going all out to see how it can whistle down the influence and the power of the BRICS movement. I want to believe that Nigeria will have done its feasibility studies, will have, you know, done all the background work to actually see that we will benefit greatly from joining the BRICS movement. It's not just about joining any movement. What is the advantage to Nigeria in the short, the medium, and the long run? I want to believe that we would have done our own work well to see that we will benefit. If we have not done this well, I know the antecedent of Trump is going to bring all manners of things to hit the movement. And I'm not sure that Nigeria is ready to be able to, you know, mitigate the effect of all these tariffs and penalties that might come in the long run. So probably now we will have to deploy high level of diplomatic relations, with the United States to see if it can get a smoother, landing spot for ourselves as a nation. But because more tariffs would definitely come, as Trump would try to whistle the influence of China in the world markets and in the world politics. So let's just hope that Nigeria will be able to deploy a high level of diplomatic relations in mitigating the effect of all this.
Okay, let's talk about the other parts. I think talking during the summit in Rio de Janeiro, the president mentioned that when it comes to climate issues, Africa contributes the least, but then Africans suffer the most. And then he said that these should be looked into. Looking at how the kind of issues that Africans go through, and then Nigeria coming out to say that, okay, we want to be a part of this, association. How possible is it that, that will actually be reduced, drastically? Because you just mentioned that, the United States is trying to frustrate, some countries, for being a part of the BRICS. It's looking like the real target is China, but other countries, African countries, might suffer, for this. Hello, are you still there? Okay, I think we have a network issue there. Okay, maybe we'll still have him, join us before we wrap it up on the segment this morning. Still looking above that issue, because a lot of Nigerians, have raised their eyebrows to say that, this, threat coming from the United States and, of course, the president of Donald Trump, what do we make of this? Okay. Analyst Oigani, are you back? Okay, let's continue. We'll have him speak on that when we have him back on board. Let's talk about, ASUU. I have this, story still on Nigerian Tribune, and it says ASUU direct members to withdraw services over delayed salaries. And then we have a rider here saying UniJos, Abuja already joined the strike. I recall, part of what the president said before he actually became the president of the country is to say that what, once I come into power, once I become the president, strike is gone. Universities will no longer experience strike. And of course, for the last 2 years now, I've not heard anything about strike. And because even friends, associates, that are still in school, they've not complained about strike. Everything has been going on very smoothly. But okay, I think we have Analyst Oigani, you back on board. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Amy.
Okay, so let's talk about ASUU now. I have this headline that says ASUU direct members to withdraw services over delayed salaries. And it says UniJos, Abuja already joined the strike. I recall that in 2023, the president, speaking about his manifesto, said, once I come on board, forget about strike and the federal universities. And of course, we've seen that in the last 2 years. We've not heard about strike, though, we know that there's some grumblings amongst the ASUU members about, some of their, requests from the federal government, some of their old salaries in the past years. What do you make of this? Because, if anything like ASUU strikes should come up again, it's going to affect a lot of things. We've had, very serious ASUU strikes in the past, the ones that lasted for 8 months, 6 months, close to a year. Is this something that we should be, afraid of? Because looking at the fact that UniJos and Abuja have already joined the strike.
Okay, so last month, ASUU gave a notice to the government that anytime their salaries are being delayed, anytime their member salaries are being delayed, they would go on industrial action. So this notice has been there all along. They have already sent it out. So one would expect that the education minister and every other person, involved in that sector would have done the needful so that this issue does not come up. They had already given the notice that they were not going to stand again for delayed salaries. So that means that we should have done all that we could to ensure that their salaries and their benefits are not delayed. It's really a pity that we allow things to get to this level. And now we have to now start running helter-skelter and doing meetings that we could have avoided in the first place. I won't blame ASUU this time around because they had already given the notice. And every other person should have done their work and been on their toes. But it's unfortunate that sometimes people drop the ball and there are no consequence management for doing this. If I were the president, I would actually query the education minister on why this is happening. It's unfortunate, but let's see how the government can come up with schemes and ways to pacify ASUU and get them back to the classes.
All right, since talking about the issue of ASUU, I recall that, there was a time that the government, came out to say that, some of these lecturers are actually, doing a lot, because a lot of them still work in Nigerian universities and still, lecture abroad, and so they collect double salary. And of course, he has come out to say that, this is a very, great issue, and a lot of them are still clamoring for, no work, no pay. Is it really a good thing, looking at Nigeria? Okay, I think we have a network issue there, but I would like to still continue on this issue of ASUU strike, because I recall, just like I was saying, there was a time that, the government came out to say some of these lecturers, they work in Nigeria, they collect salaries, and of course, they still work abroad to collect salaries. And then they try to, work on that scheme to make sure that, if you are working in Nigeria, you work in Nigeria. You don't have the right to still say you want to lecture abroad. But a lot of lecturers have also come out to complain based on this, that, you see, the salaries that we are being paid as lecturers in the university. I tell you, some professors in Nigerian university, earn around 450,000, some slightly above that. And so they've come out to say that this cannot actually cater for our needs. So we need to, source for more funds, and that's why, we take up appointment, in other universities, whether in Nigeria or abroad, to actually, sustain and maintain ourselves. Okay, let's look at this headline on Nigeria Tribune again, and then it says, not ganging up against Tinubu, and that's coming from APC. National Secretary says we will not miss Aregbesola, Amechi and others in 2027. Let's talk about the North now, because there have been speculations that, come 2027, the president might actually, drop Shettima. And recently, the daughter of Buba Galadima also came out to say that, looking at some of the issues, that is actually going on in the North, the president might not be able to gather up to 30%, in the northern part of the state. And, the North has the numbers. Is that not a huge concern, for the president, for APC, come 2027? And looking at this coalition, most members of the coalition used to be the president ally, the likes of Aregbesola, the likes of Amechi, the likes of Rufai. A lot of them have actually left the APC permanently to move to this coalition. What does this say, for President Bola Tinubu in 2027? However, members of the APC have come out to say that, who Bola Tinubu is. He's strategic. He loves to, do a lot of, things on the ground that might not be so obvious to the public. So regardless of the tension going on in the North, he knows how to play his game well, and of course, he's going to hand him that win come 2027. However, is that certain? We do not know. Let's also look at another headline this morning coming from the New Telegraph, and then it says reps demand whereabouts of MDA's missing 300 billion naira. That's a lot of money. Speaking about this issue of missing money, we also talk about the issue of NNPC this morning, trillions of naira. And of course, the Senate committee have come out to say that we are not saying they stole the money. We are basically saying they should come and account for the money. Another headline on New Telegraph this morning is saying, okay, I think I have Mr. Ganiyu back on board. Analyst Ganiyu, are you back on board? Okay, I think you're back. Can you hear me clearly? Hello? Okay, I think there's still a network issue there. Let's continue. Another headline on New Telegraph is saying 2027 ADC alleges plot by APC to destabilize coalition. And of course, the headline has a particular rider, still talking about the fact that, it appears that members of the APC are trying to frustrate the effort, of this coalition. What do you make of that? The rider is saying, as PDP BOT member Waziri defects to party, we have received David Mark's resignation letter. That's coming from Benue PDP. A lot is still going on, within the PDP, within the ADC, and of course the APC. Do you really think the APC members, of course, are trying to frustrate, the activities of this ADC. Recall that, Nasir El-Rufai, the former governor of Kaduna State, came out to say, recently that, you see, even if ADC should have issues or crises, maybe leadership crisis or maybe internal crisis, we are going to, bring about a new political party. We are going to establish a new political party. So it's going to be a long run. A lot of, interesting stories will actually, come around in the next few weeks and months, because these people are saying we are not going to back down regardless of whatsoever it is that APC is planning, within the ADC. Because if you look at these people, they are friends. Because we say that in politics, we do not have permanent enemies. It depends on interest. If you can benefit me, if I can benefit you, then we can actually have a deal and, of course, work some things out. So we are actually looking forward to how, some of these issues will play out come 2027. Speaking about ADC, do they have the capacity to actually unseat the president come 2027? And also speaking about the PDP and the Labour Party, will this coalition not lead, to the extinction of these parties? Looking at the fact that a lot of big wigs have actually left the PDP, left the Labour Party. Some are even considering, defecting, in the next few weeks or months. What does this make, for opposition parties in Nigeria? Let's also not forget about the fact that the APC have accused the ADC and members of actually, not having the interests of Nigerians at heart. To them, they feel they just want to come and take over the government, without, necessarily, benefiting Nigerians. What do you make of all of this? Opposition parties in Nigeria, are they actually getting stronger or getting weaker? What does it say for the presidential election come 2027? Of course, we can no longer take more headlines because the time is no longer on our side. I want to say a big thank you for joining this segment this morning. Of course, but I need to thank Analyst Toyin Ganiyu before I say my BYV on this segment. Analyst Toyin Ganiyu, are you there now?
Yes, I am.
Of course, thank you for being a part of the show this morning. It's a pity we cannot go further because of the network. And of course, we need to move to another segment. Thank you for being a part of the segments this morning.
Thank you for always having me.
All right, you do have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Right, this is where we say Biwahi on this segment, but definitely not on Daybreak Live this morning. We still have the big story and, of course, the trend watch. Please do well to stay with us. My name is Oluwayemi Adelagun.
It's a developing drama that stretches from the courtroom to the chambers of power after a landmark court ruling reinstates Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan as the rightful representative of Kogi Central. The big question now stirs the nation. Will the Nigerian Senate honor the court's directive and allow her resume her seat? Or will the political undercurrents shape a different outcome? Welcome to the big story on Daybreak Live, where we dissect the headlines behind the headlines. I'm Samson Balogun, and today we dive into the legal, political, and constitutional tensions in the court versus chamber. Will Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan be allowed back on the floor of the House? The Senate is the heartbeat of Nigeria's legislative arm, but today that art is under judicial and public scrutiny. The courtroom has spoken, declaring Natasha Akpoti as the lawful and, of course, representative of our people, of our senatorial district. But what happens when legal pronouncements meet political resistance? The moment calls us to reflect on the integrity of all institutions, the law, the legislature, and the will of the people. As we explore the issue with our guests this morning, who will join us shortly, but of course Yemi Adelakun is here. Together we'll start this. We are not just discussing one senator's fate. We are examining the soul of Nigerian democracy and the power struggle between justice and politics. Good morning once again. Samson Balogun is my name. Let's take a quick rundown at how it began, how it happened. December 8, 2023, alleged harassment incident. Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, accompanied by her husband, attended Akpabio's birthday, which is the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in Uyo. She later alleged that during a tour of his home, Senator Akpabio held her hand and said, "I'm going to create time for us to come spend quality moments here. You will enjoy it." A motion in the Senate was reportedly obstructed after she rebuffed him. Now, on February 20, 2025, there was a chamber confrontation over sitting and the sitting arrangement. Senator Natasha discovered a nameplate removed and seat reassigned. She raised repeated points of order, clashed openly with Senator Akpabio, and was referred to the Ethics and Privileges Committee. Late February 2025, that was February 2028, there was a sexual harassment allegation made public. In an interview, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan formally accused Senator Akpabio of sexual harassment, citing the December 2023 incident and asserting his motives extended to obstructing her motions, especially one on Ajaokuta still rolling. Now, let's go straight to March 4 to 5, 2025. Ethics Committee hearing begins and the petition filed. The Senate Ethics Committee, chaired by Neda Maswin, opened a probe into her conduct. Meanwhile, Senator Natasha Akpoti refiled a petition for 100 billion defamation damages against Senator Akpabio, the Senate President. 6 months suspension was announced. A few weeks later, that was March 6, 2025, the Ethics Committee dismissed the harassment petitions on procedural grounds, self-signature, and recommended a 6-month suspension for misconduct. The full Senate approved, stripping her office and, of course, her pay and security access. March 7 to 8, 2025, there was a public backlash and Senate clarification. Women's rights groups were held Natasha. Civil society and ex-minister Obi Ezekwesili demanded an urgent Senate session investigation and Akpabio stepping aside. Senate leader Bamidele clarified the suspension was solely for procedural misconduct, not harassment claims. All in all, there was a call for apology and more pressure that came with it. Youth groups urged Akpoti to apologize. FIDA and women's associations demanded the independent probes and Akpabio's resignation. Traditional leaders defended Akpabio, vouching for his integrity. That was on March 9 to 10, 2025. Moving on to March 11 and 14, Senator Akpoti presented a case at an Inter-Parliament Union, which is the UN Women's Forum in New York. Back in Abuja, she sued Senator Akpabio and filed a court contempt proceedings. A court reprimanded the Senate leader for defying an interim order that led to a suspension. Of course, a lot happened since then, dated, but moving straight to July 4, 2025, there was a court intervention and lifting of suspension. An Abuja court ruled a suspension excessive, lifting it, but finding her in contempt of a gag order, fined 5 million naira, which is about $3,250 US. Now, we'll take a critical look at the situation this morning. Yemi Adelakun is in the building with me. Good morning to you once again.
Good morning, Samson Balogun.
I know you've got a lot to say about the situation of things with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan's back and forth with the Senate President, and of course a suspension going on, and accusations back and forth. At a point, there were insinuations that her home was attacked in Kogi State. She was banned not to conduct a rally in Kogi State. Eventually, she went there, and then the rally came on board. But the situation now, the court has ruled in favor of Senator Natasha Akpoti to return to the House. But then, what does the Constitution say about the enforcement? If we are not, let's just talk about this situation as bystanders, people who are watching from afar. The Senate is doing theirs. Senator Natasha, out of the Senate, doing hers too. She was here and there on the pages of the newspaper. She granted interviews. But then, how do you think she will be able to integrate herself back into the Senate, even if the Senate brings her back on board?
Okay, looking at the kind of personality that she has, I think she's the one that does not, support backing down at any point. Speaking of interviews, apart from granting interviews in Nigeria, I think she went outside of Nigeria to also talk about this issue. And so when I listened to her, I think I watched one of the videos that, people, dropped online, and she said even during this suspension period, she has been working tirelessly. Recall what, the resident judge, said about this issue, and that's Binta Yaku. And she said that, how is a senator, supposed to be suspended for that long period? What will happen to the people of her constituent? And then she said, she's been working, she has not, I do, and then most of the bills that she intends to submit at the Senate, she's been working on those bills, and should she just resume work, she's going to make sure that she drops those bills so that they can be passed and things can be better for our people. So looking at Natasha, I don't think she's going to have any issues resuming back to work and then moving on with her duties as a senator representing Kogi Central. I don't think so, because looking at how she's very vocal. And she's very vocal, even though she has been able to, she paid some fines, and there are a lot of persons that said, she could have actually, avoided those fines because of some of the things she said. I feel Natasha is a type that will never back down. She says it as it is. She's never, tired of, interviews. Even recently, I watched an interview yesterday when the interviewer asked her that, if you actually, resume back, in the Senate, how do you feel, this man will treat you? And the person asked that question, and I think someone was trying to tell her that be careful of what you will say, because we don't want you paying another huge fine because of some of the things that you want to say. And she said, don't worry, I know what I can say. And then he said that the Senate president and of course other members of the Senate should work more on respecting other people's opinions, and of course making sure that this country is better for everyone. So back to your question, I don't think Natasha will have any issue resuming back fully to her duties, and of course working on her bills and making sure that our people are well represented in the House. Okay,
now taking a look at how it all happened, there are insinuations that if there was a sexual harassment claim, it happened a long time ago. You did not report it to anyone. Why was it that when there was a situation on the floor of the House, that was when you were able to report that? That should be separate incidents, not because you had an issue with the Senate President on the floor of the House, and it is being linked to what you said happened a long time ago. So putting that side by side, don't you think some people might think it was just a ruse, a way of trying to put the Senate President on in a tight corner by bringing something that really probably happened or did not happen a few months ago or years ago into the fray?
Okay, to that question, I think she mentioned sometime that, the pressure has been there, coming from this man, but she has not, been able to actually give in to the pressure. I think she said she even mentioned the matter to her husband, who happens to be a friend of the Senate President. So her coming out to say this, I feel maybe because of the pressure she has been, feeling from the Senate President. I think she spoke about the fact that some of her bills have been delayed, and then people are suffering, and then maybe it's part of the reason why she said, what, let's just talk about this. Recall that even recently she said she has some strong evidences, that support her claims, because members of the Senate have also come out to debunk some of the things that Natasha said, in trying to favor, the Senate President Akpabio. But really, we do not know. This matter will not end here. That's one thing I'm sure of, because she says she has some strong evidences that supports that. Recently, she also came out to say that, Yahya Bello and also the Senate President were trying to kill her. So talking about this whole sexual harassment and the likes, I feel maybe she came out to talk about this because of the pressure that she was feeling from the Senate President, or maybe the body language in the House. We are not present there, so we cannot really say much, but maybe speculations online and based on some of the interviews that she has granted over the years, she came out to talk about this is because of the pressure. Human relationships, sometimes when you feel pressure, you tend to talk about some things that you don't want to talk about. I don't know if you're aware of that. Sometimes when you really do not want to talk about those things, but when you feel unnecessary pressure, those things will even come out, because not because you want to say them. You
can't stop it.
Exactly, but because you're agitated and you're pressured. So that's what I feel.
All right, the show is still Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television, and this is the big story. It has not ended. Let's go on a short break, and when we return, it is coming better and bigger. We'll be back after this time out. All right, welcome back. The show is still Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television. This is the big story. You can follow us on all social media platforms. Link up with us on YouTube channel. Drop your comment there. We are definitely going to take them. Dr. Kunle Okunla is with me in the studio this morning. He's a respected public affairs analyst, also a security expert. With him and Yemi Adilakun will be doing justice to major stories we have this morning, and that is the one of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Now, taking a look at the history, about 7 senators have been suspended in history. Senator Femi Okuromo, Ogun Central, suspended in 1999 for alleging a plot to impeach President Obasanjo, later reinstated after apologizing. Joseph Waku of Benue Northwest, suspended in 2000 for saying a military coup would be preferable to President Obasanjo's rule. Now, Arthur Nzeribe of Imo in Holu, indefinitely suspended in November 2002 over alleged 22 million fraud under Senate President Ayim Pius Ahim. Isa Mohammed of Niger Central, suspended for 2 weeks in October 2004 after slapping Senator Yabo Nishulowo then. Aliu Ndume of Borno South, suspended for 6 months in March 2017 after pressing for investigation into allegations of involving Senate President Saraki and Dino Melaye, later ruled illegal and unconstitutional by the court. Ovio Omoagege of Delta Central, suspended in 2018 for opposing amendment of the Electoral Act, though the court later declared that such lengthy suspension was invalid. Away from there, Abdul Dengi of Bauchi Central, suspended for 3 months in March 2024 after alleging that the 2024 budget was padded by 3 trillion naira. Straight down the line, and that is the story of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, Dr. Kunle Okonla. There has been a history of senators being suspended in Nigeria. Yeah. Why is this different? Why is the noise so much, and why are we having so many people saying, look, she has to be back on the floor of the House?
Majority of the people that have been...
Good morning to you. Let me put it that way.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good to have you on the show.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, now, let's back to the question.
Yeah, majority of the people that have been suspended in the Senate before are men, and this has to be a case of a woman. And most of the time when you have a case like this involving a woman, especially with the undertone of sexual harassment, then it is going to attract sympathy, from a lot of people, international bodies and women rights activists all over the place, and majority of the people. It's worthy of being noted that the Senate, has the right to discipline any member.
Sitting member.
Yes, they have the right, and the court upheld that in the judgment. That the Senate has the right. The Chapter 8 of the Senate Standing Rules, as well as the Section 14 of the Legislative House Power and Privileges Act, stipulated this. But the issue with this act is that the length of the duration of the suspension is not mentioned here. And when you suspend as a senator, it's like you are suspending a constituency that he represents, because they have no representation in the Senate. And in the case of Natasha now, in a year, the Senate must sit for 181 times. And you are suspending her for
6 months.
6 months, that's 180. That means that for the whole year, Kogi Central that she represents has no representation. Those are the things that makes this one to generate a lot of noise, in the society.
Okay, now going to the current situation of things. Court has ruled that Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, senator, should be restored as a full member of the Senate.
Yeah.
But then, are you of the opinion that the Senate will allow her back on the floor of the House? Or do you think there will be some other disciplinary actions against her?
The representative of the Senate have come out and said that, reinstatement is not automatic. It depends on a response. Part of the judgment also was the fine that she was given, 5 million naira, and also that she should make a formal apology. In 2 daily newspaper and on her Facebook page because of the satirical comment she made. The Senate initially asked her to apologize, to the Senate president, and instead of doing that, she went on her Facebook and she made that satirical comment, in the sense that it's a comment to bring down the Senate, and the senators believe that it's not just bringing down the Senate president, but the whole House.
Senate.
All right. So the representative of the Senate was saying that it's the onus is on her now. She should go and do what the court says she should do, and it is what she, puts up, as an apology that will determine how the Senate will now, sit on the matter and determine when she's coming back, So what I'm trying to say is that our reinstatement is not going to be automatic. And she has to be very careful also, because she was found guilty of contempt of law. A case was already in court.
Sustained against her in court.
All right, and you went and be talking about her. You don't do that. both parties must not, do that, and she was everywhere doing that. The moment the court gave the judgment on Friday, Sunday morning, she was on her Facebook again and saying that she's going to be back today. Today is Tuesday. Yeah. She's going to be back on Tuesday, and she has not fulfilled the requirement of the law. All right, published an apology on two daily newspaper and pay the fine, and you have gone to your constituency to address the people that you are coming back. She is not the Senate president, and that's what the senators are trying to tell her. All right, do what you're supposed to do, then we will meet and we'll determine when you are coming back. You are definitely going to come back because there is a fault in the law of the Senate that indicts you. All right, and the judge is asking for the senators to review and amend their law and order, because there is no stipulated time for, punishment for any member.
Okay, now Yemi, very quickly, what would you say about even if the Senate allows her back on the floor of the House, how swift is her integration going to be, judging by the fact that there are 109 senators on the floor of the House, 108 and one for the Federal Capital Territory, but right now none of them seem to support her openly while the case was ongoing. Now, how will she be able to integrate herself back into the floor into the Senate when she returns? Yemi, very quickly.
Okay, I think she's going to experience some issues, going back to the fact that even before the suspension, she had issues with some members of the Senate, which was very open to the public. And of course, just like I said, she's the type of person that is very blunt. She doesn't really, know how to hide her feelings. So she's going to experience some issues, and then I'll say she should really tread carefully, regardless of the fact that, the Federal High Court of Abuja and the resident, judge said that, her suspension was, unconstitutional and excessive. She has that, and I think it was based on that that made her to come out and say, you know what, I'm going to resume on Tuesday. And because of that, the whole nation is alerted. We want to know what will happen, whether she's going to resume today or not. Going back to your question, she might experience some issues, but then I will advise that, she should not, take it, so she should not make it look so much like, okay, these people are attacking me or they're against me, they don't want me to represent my people well. She should tread carefully and follow the law. Even if she will have, grievances, it can be heard, in due process, and not just, trying to attack anyone. That's what I feel.
Okay, Dr. Kunle-Okola, sometimes when we have cases like this or something similar in Nigeria, people tend to address the secondary issue and not, talk about the primary problem. Now, right now, if she's not allowed back on the floor of the House, people will think it is a personal issue. And then I want to ask you, is there any political undertone attached to this as we speak?
Oh, definitely. There are political undertone attached to it, definitely. Majority of the 109 members of the Senate, majority of them are from APC. She is representing PDP, and it's quite unbelievable that not a single person, not even the women
on the floor of the House
support of what she's doing, and that tells probably something about her character. And yesterday, more than 1,000 women came out to protest that she should not be allowed to go back, because if it's done like that, it's going to be an indictment against the sanctity of the Senate. And they are all women. They are all women, and you wonder, it speaks a volume about a character, of this person, and that's why I believe she should tread gently, because PDP is not on the majority in the House. Some other things could be planned, and if any allegation is raised against her this time around, she probably will not enjoy as much sympathy that she enjoyed. So she should be careful. And yes, she's outspoken, and she's had some issues in the past, if you look into history. But coming back, I believe she should tread gently and be careful.
You mentioned that some women came out in their numbers to protest that she should not be reinstated, just like that. So what impact could this situation have on public trust in democratic institutions, the courts against the Senate? Now, the Senate have their modus operandi, their standing rule on the floor of the House, and the court is saying something else. Now, coming together, there is a gap that needs to be filled, which is the Senator, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. If she fails to do the needful as ordered by the courts, that will bring the court and the Senate, to clash. Then what will happen? What will happen to the public trust?
Thank you. With the way Justice Nyako declared the judgment, there is no clash between the court and the Senate. The court agrees that the Senate has their own way of disciplining any member. It's in their constitution, their law and order. Chapter 8 of the Senate, Chapter 14 of the House of Representatives. But the issue is that the duration of the length of the days or times of punishment was not stipulated, and that's why Justice Nyako was advising the Senate that they should review and amend. Okay, if it was stipulated in the constitution of the Senate, the law and order, that you can suspend it for 6 months, she is not the only one that will have been suspended for 6 months. All right, it will stand, and nothing will be done. So what I believe will happen now is that there is a committee that is responding for review and amending the constitution or the law and order of the Senate. I believe they're going to sweep into action and do something about that. So there is no collision between the court, judicial, and the legislative in this matter. It is well stated. Okay, and the court also knows that the Senate as a body has the right to determine when to ask to resume, especially after she had fulfilled, whatever the court says she should do. And they according to this spokesperson of the Senate, they said they are ready, to have her back. Well, let her go and fulfill what the law says she should fulfill. Then we'll sit down and invite her. Okay, it's premature for her to have come out and said, definitely, I'm resuming on Tuesday. And I don't think she's going to be allowed, in the House today. I don't think, and I don't even think she's going to try that because she hasn't fulfilled what the law says.
Okay, now if you did not suspend yourself, why come out openly and say, oh, on so day I'll be on the floor of the House? Nigerian politicians, especially those at the corridor of power currently, are sometimes known for disregard for the rule of law. Now, what does this actually say? Coming out to say, look, I'm going back to the floor of the House when you have not even fulfilled all righteousness, what the court has told you to do. What does this say to an average Nigerian on the street who feels, oh, this should be... originally, people at the corridor of power should be role models to people. You should be the one they tend to emulate because of how you follow the rule of law. But now, things reverses the case in this situation. So what does that preach to an average Nigerian on the street?
Okay, so I really do not support the fact that she came out to say I'm going to resume today, because myself I was shocked. Going back the fact that the Senate is yet to say anything concerning whether suspension will be lifted or not. And then I feel like when it comes to politics in Nigeria, regardless of how much support you get from the top people in the politics or in Nigeria, please play smart. Because at the end of the day, when the issues come up, they will be nowhere to be found. Because if this should escalate now, and then maybe the Senate will say that, okay, because of this that you have done, we might actually delay your resumption in the Senate. What will happen? So I feel like she should really play it calm and smart, because your constituent, they might come out to say, oh, we support you, we love you, this and that. I think she's the kind of person that loves to talk to people from time to time, because it's so soon, you hearing from the resident judge in the Federal High Court in Abuja and coming out to tell people. I was shocked to myself, but I feel like she should really play it smart, and then try to follow due process, and then take time, be patient with issues before you come out to tell people, because whether you like it or not, this might actually incite some tussle even amongst our people, because they are expecting that she should resume today. A lot of them, I'm very very sure they are hoping to see that, okay, our senator is back because they want her to work. Because whereas the Senate has not actually approved whether your suspension will be lifted or not. So I think it's not the right thing to do. She should really be patient and calm, regardless of the fact that, you know, some persons are supporting that, not necessarily part people from the Senate, maybe people from the outside. And of course, I think she has the support of some international bodies because she left Nigeria to also take some interviews, and then the people are saying, okay, this is not right, we support this. I think apart from the fact that some women came out to say that, okay, this woman should not return, some certain people also came out to say that, you know what, she must return. There were protests in some parts of the country, and especially, I think, in Kogi State as well. So I feel like, you know, it's two ways. You know, she has her supporters, but do not really bank on them. Follow the law. The law will always save you. When you know the law, I think she's very, no, just like she sounds very intelligent, you know, so I think that she should, I know, follow the law, regardless of, you know, the support you have, because your people will say, Majulo Mwenye, translated, you dancing, we are after you, we are watching your back. It can actually not lead to something good at the end of the day, regardless of the support you have from people, from international bodies. Follow the law, and at the end of the day, you can actually, you know, she can resume her duties as the senator.
Okay, Dr. Kunle Okola, very quickly before we go on this show, because our time is fast spent, could this issue escalate into a constitutional crisis? And then what safeguard exists for Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan?
It's actually translating to constitutional crisis, because presently, whether they like, the Senate must review the constitution, and there must be an amendment, and that in a way will affect even the overall constitution of Nigeria. That is going to affect it. I just feel that Senator Natasha should be careful. She's not the only woman in the Senate. You know, even the previous women senators, they came. Senator Etagiwa came. She was there for 8 years and said she's not right. That, you know, when if you study this Senate very well, it's like I don't want to say a cult, you know, but they have their way of doing things. You can't just be an odd person out in a community just because, you know, you have some handful of people that are inciting you to go on, and you realize even the husband has been quiet about this. So I believe she should be careful. You know, she's a very intelligent woman. I followed most of her interviews. She's a lawyer, and she has another degree, master's degree in oil and gas and whatever. Very, very intelligent. But at the same time, you know, you have to abide by the rule of the place where you belong. It's very important.
All right, Dr. Kunle Okola, thank you for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Kunle Okola is a respected public affairs analyst and also a security expert joining us on the show this morning. Now, the courtroom may interpret the law, but will the chamber obey? That's the heart of our big story today. As this case unfolds, one thing remains clear. Democracy thrives when all arms of government play by the rules. We'll keep watching, and so should you. Thank you for joining us on The Big Story on Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television. Until next time, I'm Samson Balogun. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, the truth is never too far when you ask the right questions. Bye for now. We'll be back shortly for Trend Watch. back from that short break. The show is still Daybreak Live right here on Dominion Television, your channel of choice, where inspiration meets entertainment. Don't forget, the show is still Daybreak Live. Now, you can be a part of the conversation. Link up with us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dominion Broadcast and drop your comments. Watch us live on our website, www.dominion.org.ng. Now we are straight to Trend Watch this morning. And of course, Yemi Adelakun is still here with me in the studio.
Yes, we welcome you back, and we have quite a lot of stories this morning, but we are going to take just this one. Okay. And it's coming from Diary of a Kitchen Lover, popularly known as Chef T. And then she said, the pressure that constantly pushes women into unrecognizable state is sickening. Although this doesn't get to me in any way, there are some women who will fall into depressive state because of comments like this. Let us leave women alone. Being a woman is enough struggle, let alone who is battling behind the scenes. Leave women alone. I think that's coming because, you know, one of our fans commented that, you know what, Chef T, we need a baby brother. I think, you know, it's high time, you know, people mind their business in certain, you know, discussions, because really, what if she wants to give birth to just one? What if it's a decision? What if she's going through some, you know, health issues that might not warrant her to actually take in at the moment? Just like she said, women and even men, a lot of people battle some things, you know, over the things that are not so obvious to the public.
You know, it's just disheartening that we still get people who actually drop comments like this on people's handles. I think it's rude, it is unwarranted, unnecessary, shouldn't happen. In fact, it's an aberration, if I may put it that way. You know, sometimes you need to learn to mind your business. I've always been an advocate of that. There are too many things you don't say to people. What if she's trying to, you know, conceive, and then there are inherent challenges that have stopped her from doing it, and that is probably that is even a concern at the moment. Exactly. And that's what you're talking about. You know, it's just a norm in Nigeria that Nigerians ask you questions that brings you back to, you know, your sorry state of mind. That
can take you back to depression.
To depression. Take, for example, you are just getting out of depression. Probably someone lost his or her job. You know, probably sold, you know, all the facilities he or she has, sold cars, and then the next thing you say when you see that person is, where's your car? You know, these are things that challenges the state of mind of an average human being at all times. So instead of asking, you know, you have not even asked about kids, you have not asked about the family, all you are asking is a car. So it tells you, people size you up by what they see with you. They don't even know what your state of mind is about. So you, instead of doing that, check on them, you know what is wrong with them, instead of just putting them on the spot by asking difficult questions. And I feel at this point, an average Nigerian should learn that you don't just put people under pressure by asking silly questions. You should be able to know when to draw the line between the right questions and the wrong ones.
Exactly, and I also feel like, you know, celebrities are humans, so they have blood running through their veins. Though his celebrity life is a very, you know, I don't want to say it's not an easy life. They go through a lot. I mean, inside and outside, people want to speculate on their lives, because even when they don't bring their family to public, they find this day. It's just, you know, they see situations whereby people just come and talk about, why have you not gotten married yet? You are old. Questions like that.
These are, you know, questions that really should not come up. I know a friend, a very close friend of mine, who had just one child about 10 years ago, and you know, every time she talks, she's like, oh, I don't want to have more than one child. But then deep down, there was something wrong with her. It was until lately that we had a deep conversation that she said, oh, do you think I don't want to have another child? I've been struggling with this, that. So she's been having, you know, something to battle with, but unless she says it out or tells someone, people will not know. And then imagine someone asking, things like that.
Some decisions are not intentional.
They are not intentional.
They are based on maybe certain issues.
Let's take the comments before we wrap it up on this show this morning. Okay. Omoni Adeori says, if a woman no quick marry, wahala. If she marry and she no quick born, wahala pro. If she born one and she no quick born 2, 3, wahala pro max. Waiting the owner problem self. I mean, we just explained that on the show. Really? So you should learn how to mind your own business. I mean, you know, people are really struggling with things that you don't even know, and then if you ask them questions that puts them on the spot right there and then it becomes a problem for them.
And I recall that there was a time a very popular Western actor, you know, he was losing weight at some point, and people were bullying him online until the man died. and then they discover that he had cancer.
I mean,
honestly,
it's
you don't really know what people are
tend to
facing.
say things that really should not, shouldn't have even slipped out of their mouth. But then they just open it and then they put it out there.
I see. When it comes to data, because people have access to data and their phones, they can type all sorts. Another comment is coming from Adai's Space, and then this person is saying, if you need a baby brother, go and born the child now. How is it Chef T's business? What you need,
really? That's what I'm saying of. So if you need a child, please go and have one. Get
one for yourself.
Do not put someone else's daughter or son under pressure for nothing. And this is the convenient point where we wrap it up on this show this morning. We say very big thank you to everyone that has been a part of the show so far. Don't forget to keep it locked on this DIOC. We have a lot of interesting shows for you on Dominion Television today. So keep it locked there. You're definitely going to enjoy yourself. As you go on a Tuesday morning like this, I say keep being safe out there, and of course keep being good. Do have a lovely day. Samson Balogun is my name.
All right, thank you for being a part of this session. Do well to join us tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Of course, we have quite a number of things, packed up, to talk about. And before I go, I want to tell you that do not, feel pressured, regardless of the situation. Be positive at all times. My name is Oluwayemi Adela, and I'm saying good morning.